The Hills of California is a new play from Jez Butterworth. Here's Beth Stevens with another edition of Building Broadway.
Thanks, Tamsin. Tony winner Jez Butterworth's The Hills of California, starring Olivier Award winner Laura Donnelly, is on Broadway after a celebrated London run. I sat down with a real-life couple to talk about their latest collaboration. The last time you two were on Broadway was with The Ferryman, and that was very much inspired by Laura's family, and it feels to me that this was more inspired by your family, Jez. Is that the case?
Yeah, I think some bits of it were inspired by your family. I think the whole idea of a troop of children being drilled to fulfil a task that wasn't perhaps top of their list of things to do. Yeah, it comes from her side. But the rest, the rest.
Are you referring to some kind of dancing that you did as a child?
Dancing, gymnastics, all sorts of family endeavours.
I used to refer to Laura's family as the family muck trap.
Oh, wow. Lots of performing.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, the rest of it I think is pretty much a hodgepodge and a stew of all sorts of pain, trauma, and loss from my side of the equation. Yeah.
Well, you said that with a smile, but it is about something very traumatic and very emotionally deep. Tell me about accessing that, both of you, that kind of emotion.
That's the best part of acting. It's the reason that I wanted to be an actor in the first place. So the more available, the deeper that you can be driven by the writing, the better. And I'm always looking for kind of where the greatest depth in the play for whichever character I'm playing is, and then kind of judge everything else from there. But gosh, it's just become so part of my job over the last couple of decades that I don't think of that as in any way unusual or tricky to do or anything like that. It is the job.
It's a funny thing, which is, it's always hard to remember, and whenever it feels like I'm trying to kind of whistle it up again, it feels almost like I'm counterfeiting it, but I know it had things to do with the death of my sister and us gathering for what was a long drawn out process there of her death from cancer in 2012. I know that it has a lot to do with things that happened to me early on in life. You know, I have 4 daughters, and there are 4 daughters in this family. I think that sometimes I'm upstairs dying, and sometimes I'm downstairs attending the death, like in a dream where you're suddenly different characters. And whenever I embark on trying to explain where this comes from, it's like I still genuinely don't really know why it is. Like when a songwriter sits down to write a song, I'm pretty sure they don't have like bullet points of things that they need to cross off and go through from their own life. It's kind of like a waking dream.
Laura, you play 2 characters, but the mother character is a bit of an ambitious woman, and in this current era of momagers and, you know, mama roses, she has more humanity to her that you found. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think that is because the emotion of the story is not based on somebody who wants her children to be famous. It's somebody who wants her children to be safe and to have a better life than she did. Her blindness to the risks around that means that she makes a crucial decision which has such a knock-on effect for her relationship with her daughters and for the lives of the daughters after that. But I don't think that it's based around the stage and fame. It's based around that decision and those relationships and the consequences.
You are writing mostly women characters here. Did you find it easy to get into the heads of the women? I mean, you are surrounded by women in your life.
I am, and I don't remember the moment where they all were women. Like, it's an odd thing. So when a play idea forms in my head, it is like a doorbell rings and you open it and there's characters standing there and you decide whether or not you're going to let them in. And in my first play it was 6 men, and in this play it was 8 women, and I'm not really sure why they come to the door. They don't come to the door often enough for my liking, but when they do, I let them in.
You know, Laura, you have the luxury of having characters written specifically for you. Are there discussions in your household about that as you're working together?
Not really, no, because I don't think that I don't think you're writing characters that you're thinking are specific to what I can do or what, I mean, I think somewhat with the ferryman, because that was obviously a more personal story, but in this case, Jez just has an idea for a play and knew that he wanted the mother to also be played by the same actress as plays the daughter, and just started talking to me about that early on. And I don't think there was a point where you said, do you want to do it? It was just kind of assumed, because we've enjoyed our collaboration so much in the past, and it was just kind of assumed that would be the next thing we would do. But I don't think you had any clue as to whether or not I could do any of the things you'd actually put in there.
As I recall.
Like play the piano, for example.
Well, I couldn't play the piano, so yes, exactly. So it's not written for me, it's written for him, and then I have to go in.
I was struck by the musical ambition in this play and the timing of the play. It's very cleverly right before and right after the explosion of rock and roll.
Oh, thanks for spotting that, because that was one of the first ideas I had, was to do precisely that and show the difference in the women's lives on Veronica's life and Joan's life, getting the same character to play both around the same age, and just how different their lives are on either side of that phenomenon. But yeah, I'm obsessed with rock and roll, and I was when I was 4, and I am today, and it felt like a real find to set something just like right, as you say, right before and right afterwards, and miss out the bit in between.
You know, I read, Laura, that when you and Jez first met, you said that his play, The River, reminded you of a song, and that struck you. Do you feel that this play or all of his works remind you of songs, and if so, how?
Yeah, I find all of it does. One of the first things that will always strike me when I'm reading through a play of his for the first time is the rhythm of it, and that usually entirely informs how I'm going to play it. It just, from The River and everything through, the first time I read The River, it just, something about it was telling me very, very clearly how it needed to be sung. The majority of the work that I needed to do on it wasn't going to be through research and digging into the motivations and the intentions in a character. It was just the rhythm of the writing, and it just seemed to sing from the page, and it seemed really obvious how that should be sung. It's the rhythm, even when you're watching or listening through it, those read-throughs, or watching the play for the first few times, you could do it with your eyes closed, because it's really just listening for the rhythms of the play, and that is what tells the most of the story, I think.